Welcome to the Nyack Library's program, Ayiti, an evening of poetry, prose, and drumming from and about Haiti, with performers Denize Lauture, Stephen White, and Daniel Wolff. May is Haitian Heritage Month, and we'd hoped to celebrate it with live performances and some delicious food, but here we are instead, alone yet all together. We hope to have everyone back at our beautiful library to offer this program again in person. In the meantime, please keep checking our website, nyacklibrary.org, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and visit our YouTube channel. Our first performer is Denize Lauture. Denize writes in Haitian Creole, English, and French. He has published 11 books, including some for children, poetry in English, books in French, and also in his native language, Haitian Creole. In collaboration with Stephen Matika, Director of Readings, he helped organize a day of Haitian poetry and music at Poets House in New York in 2010. He will read 3 poems. The first is a new poem, written especially for this program and these times.
Good afternoon and good health to all of you. We are living a time that requires special poems. I'm reading you 2 special poems. Words of hope. It is true that the viral demons are invisible. It is true that their assaults are vicious. It is true that their jaws and fangs are merciless. But we are sons and daughters of the Big Apple. Sons and daughters of patience and fortitude. Sons and daughters of the bald eagle. We know how to stand tall and to keep our heads high against all odds. When we fall, we rise again. It is true that we were caught off guard. It is true that we face debilitating ill winds. It is true that the mortal gust arrived from all directions. But we are sons and daughters of the Big Apple. Sons and daughters of patience and fortitude. Sons and daughters of the bald eagle. We know how to stand tall and to keep our heads high against all odds. When we fall, we rise again. It is true that many of us have already fallen. It is true that we will lose many more. It is true that we face a fiendish enemy, but we are sons and daughters of the Big Apple. Sons and daughters of patience and fortitude. Sons and daughters of the bald eagle. We know how to stand tall. We know how to keep our heads high against all odds. When we fall, we rise again. Our fearless eyes will pierce the ugly darkness. We will study all the nasty moves. We will discover the 19 tricks and eliminate them one after another. Our brigade of brilliant minds will set ablaze the fatidic corona and blow up its demoniacal womb. We are sons and daughters of the Big Apple, sons and daughters of patience and fortitude, sons and daughters of the bald eagle. When we fall, we rise again. Denizens of hope have written our words of hope on all our walls and on all our paths, on all our roads and on all our highways. We shall always rise, and united we stand. The next poem is a brief poem published in my book, The Black Warrior, in 2005, and Humankind Weeps. Music sleeps into wood, wood speaks music. Music touches the heart of rock, rock echoes music. Music hides into metal, metal resonates music, and humankind weeps. Melodies arrive with the wind journeys with melodies. Melodies multiply the sun rays vibrate melodies. Melodies rise with the moonlight fades away with melodies. And humankind weeps. The heavens behold harmony. Harmony swings down the heavens. The starlights bend with harmony. Harmony descends along the starlights. The horizon symbolizes harmony. Harmony belongs to the distant horizon. Humankind weeps. Humankind weeps. The harmonious music of falling tears, the melody of the human heart. And I am concluding with the end of a long poem, Song of Two Lands. Song of Two Lands. I'm concluding with just the end of that poem. Beneath the sun and the moon of my childhood, upon the trees I planted, upon the stones I carved, near the grave of the first girl I kissed, on my motherland, the morning dove sings. Beneath your sun, beneath your moon, beneath your trees with falling leaves, down the web of your neon-lit streets, land of Old Man River, I walked the books of my simple songs and taught to your daughters and sons the legend of my land. Once upon the land there was sunrise. We thought it was the beginning of an eternal spring. But soon came a total eclipse. An icy wind began to blow. Every leaf fell. The birds went back inside, and a long and dark winter began. Thank you and good health.
Now we have Stephen White. Stephen is percussionist with experience playing timbales, congas, and Haitian traditional instruments. His discography includes Brazili with La Troupe Macandal, Angels in the Mirror with Elizabeth McAllister, and Rhythms of the Spirits with Steve Dietz. Together with his wife Amelia, he received the Nyack Area Peace Award from the Fellowship of Reconciliation. In April 2015, he was inducted into the Rockland County Civil Rights Hall of Fame.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name's Steve White, and I'm going to be giving the part of the presentation today that's about Haitian drumming. So I became exposed to Haitian drumming right here in Rockland County when Haitian people moved into Spring Valley, and I got a chance to meet them and to hear their music, and really found it to be very fascinating and compelling, and wanted to be part of it. So eventually myself and a couple of friends went down to the city, Manhattan, where you can get basically everything, and found a drum teacher. His name was Frisner Augustine. And Mr. Augustine taught me how to play Haitian drums. So I'm going to give you a little presentation about Haitian drumming in a second or two. I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Haitian drumming is, I've learned that Haitian drumming is one of the most complex drumming repertoires that there are in the world, because Africans from all over Africa came to Haiti and brought their cultures and their rhythms with them. And so in Haiti, you have a blend of many different cultures and rhythms from all over Africa. Really, the best way to call this is not so much even Haitian drumming, but Afro-Haitian drumming. So what I'm going to show you, I'm not going to try to show you all the different rhythms from all over. I'm going to try to give you one today. The name of this rhythm is called Juba. And Juba is a rhythm which is associated with agriculture. It's associated with the planting and the harvest. Quite often we celebrate it in the springtime. You'll play it all year round, but especially in the springtime, we'll have more of it. So it's a 6/8 rhythm. And what that means is there's 6 beats in every measure. But because it's African, it's polyrhythmic. So you'll hear that there's 4 and 6 and all kinds of things all mixed through there as it gets more and more complicated as the rhythm builds up. But let's get right into it. And I'm going to start by playing we call it a bell. It's actually, this I brought back with me from Haiti. It actually was a farm implement. It was a hoe. And it started out about that long and worked in the earth until it wore all the way down to here. So it's just a small part of it, really. But I picked it up there and found that it sounded nice. Has a nice bright tone to it. So we'll start with this, and then we'll add in the other instruments. we'll see how it goes. I'm here all by myself, so I'm going to be the orchestra. Let's try this one. Now I'm going to work in one of the drum parts, and this is called segong. So this next part is actually played on the side of the drum, and it's part that's usually called bula. We'll play it on the side of the drum here. It goes like this. So this drum is called the mama drum, and it's the largest of the drums with the lowest tone. And normally you would be playing it upright like this, but for the juba rhythm, we're going to lay it down on the ground. And that's because the juba rhythm is all about agriculture and about the planting and the harvest, and so we're getting close to the earth. So we're going to put this all together, lay the drum down on the ground, and we're going to get some juba rhythm going on. That was Juba. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Lastly, we have Daniel Wolff. Daniel's poetry has appeared in the Paris Review, American Poetry Review, and Raritan, among others. His previous collection is The Names of Birds from Four-Way Books. He's also written a half dozen nonfiction books. Ayiti, Finishing Line Press, came out of trips to Haiti to help produce Jonathan Demme's documentary, The Agronomist.
Hey, so I'm going to read from this book, Ayiti. It came out in 2020. It's a collection of poetry and prose. I hope you'll know the difference between them. And it begins with 4 quotes. The first one is from the U.S. Commerce Department, 1984. Haiti's major economic resources are the abundance of unskilled and semi-skilled labor and a sophisticated and dynamic private sector. The second quote is from Ode to Federico Garcia Lorca by Pablo Neruda, 1935. Human beings suffer, stubbornly wounded, and there are protests and weeping everywhere. And the third one is from Graham Greaves' The Comedians, which is 1966. No, I don't despair. I don't believe in despair. But our problems won't be solved by the Marines. And the last one is from Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 1990. I say, disobey the rules. Ask for more. Leave your wretchedness behind. Organize with your brothers and sisters. Never accept the hand of fate. Keep hope alive. In anticipation of travel, you watch your children splash watercolor on white paper. Try to remember, in anticipation of travel, what you will leave. Caribbean. The dark mountains seem to float on the light blue sea. They don't. They're attached to and the product of unseen pressure, the colliding forces of the North, South, and Central American tectonic plates. This pressure has helped produce some 700 islands scattered in a series of arcs between Florida and Venezuela. This one, with its thick highlands feeding muddy rivers that end at tropical beaches, stayed nameless for millions of years. Then the Taino and the Carib Indians arrived and for 3 centuries called it Ayiti, land of mountains. In 1492, after a ship sank nearby, Christopher Columbus came ashore and established the first European settlement in the New World. The Spanish cleared land and built sugar plantations. For the next 2 centuries, the island was called Hispaniola, Little Spain. In the 1600s, the French took control of the island's western third. They imported African slaves, exported coffee and sugar, and created the richest colony in the world, Saint-Dominique. In 1791, there was an uprising. It's said to have begun with a ceremony honoring a new religion that combined African, European, and native Caribbean beliefs, a system called voodoo. After more than a dozen years, the slaves defeated Napoleon's armies and named their republic Haiti, the Caribbean's first independent nation. It wasn't. It couldn't be. Like the surrounding islands, like South America, Haiti remained attached to and the product of unseen pressure. Through the 19th century, a series of presidents, emperors, and kings oversaw a subsistence economy as the new nation tried to pay off the debt France had imposed on it in return for recognizing the sovereign republic. By the 20th century, the island had become a tourist destination, falling under what's been called the colossal shadow of the United States. At the start of World War I, U.S. Marines landed and stayed for almost 20 years. They established an elite, light-skinned ruling class. Francois Duvalier was elected head of state in 1957 and soon declared himself president for life. 14 years later, When Papa Doc died, the title passed to his son. 15 years after that, protests drove Baby Doc from the island. The U.S.-backed Haitian military took control, promising fair and open elections. 4 years later, the overwhelming majority of Haitians chose as president a former Catholic priest, community organizer, and anti-Duvalist, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. "We must end this regime," Aristide declared, "where the donkeys do all the work and horses prance in the sunshine." He proposed a national literacy program, a higher minimum wage, and a redistribution of land. The military rejected the election and attempted to re-seize power, but President Aristide was inaugurated in February 1991. 6 months later, he delivered a speech calling on the elite, a half-dozen families, to pay the back taxes they owed. "You who have money, that money in your possession, it is not really yours. You earned it in thievery, under an evil regime, an evil system." A few days later, there was a military coup. Aristide fled to Venezuela, and over 1,000 of his supporters were killed. During the next 3 years, another 5,000 were murdered, their bodies often displayed on the street as a warning. Some 40,000 tried to leave the island, many by open boat, many aimed at the coast of Florida. In September 1994, the U.S. decided to return Aristide to power. 20,000 troops landed at the Port-au-Prince airport, threw down sandbags, aimed their rifles, and found no resistance. Most Haitians greeted them with cheers, while sullen police and army officers handed over their weapons. Under pressure to negotiate his return, President Aristide had signed an agreement with American and European representatives to back off raising the minimum wage, to privatize state-owned businesses, and to encourage multinational corporate development. Haitians described him as coming back depuis non yon grand soulier, both feet in a single shoe. He delivered his return speech from behind a bulletproof bubble in front of the National Palace. "No to violence," he declared. "No to vengeance. Yes to reconciliation." Then he released a white dove, the Catholic symbol of the Holy Spirit and the voodoo symbol of sacrifice. That was 3 weeks ago. The illusion of Haiti is the illusion of dark mountains that can be pried off a blue sea, as if a stamp underneath read, "Property of." Look from above at what relief buys: dust slopes, sludge rivers, piles of debris that turn out to be shelter. Now step into the heat. Take a quick breath. Is the taste of death sweet? Another illusion, a trick? Voodoo economics is a term coined by a nation rich enough for its citizens to say, "You can only keep what you give away." The opposite of illusion is sleep. Sightseeing. An 8-year-old taps on the car window. His black skin is going white at the corners of his mouth. $1. Just $1. You've been trained to smile and say no. But if he won't go away, you know how to make him disappear. Beyond his face are other faces. And beyond them, billboards selling beer. If we saw and heard, that's all we'd do. The news would never change. Today is Tuesday. People who don't have enough to eat are asking people with more than enough to share. Today is Wednesday. People who don't have enough to eat. Today is Thursday. We come for the sights, taught not to see. Look past the people. You're driving towards a mountain, a kind of steeple, but keep arriving at dust. The trees have all been lost to charcoal. You must not turn back. You must drive past the beautiful, straight-backed woman, past her baby, past the man's arms slashed across his strong chest. Yes, the topsoil's gone, and maybe the road's washed out, but nothing erases desire. You're driving towards fire. Backtrack. First was the airport, like an army base, an army base in the American South, with blocks of green camouflage tents and mustard brown jeeps, troops with silver weapons, radar spinning in the tropical sky. It's being called an intervention, not an invasion, or as some say, an intervasion. Its official goal is to provide temporary support for the return of democracy, an historic moment, not only because it's never happened before, but because it's happened again and again. Historic return, the return of history. How long will the U.S. occupy this time? What is it whispering in the president's ear? How much will the island give up in order to stay independent? Variations on these questions are older than the Republic. State Department attachés chopper into the guarded airport like the ghosts of Napoleon's commanders. After the airport, there was the bay. Signs along its beaches said in English, "Danger, water turns back on itself." After the beaches, in an empty field, an old wrought iron scale. It stood as high as a man standing on top of a man. It had a claw to weigh how much sugar cane had been cut, how much profit would be made. It was rusted solid. After the airport, the beaches, the iron scale, downtown Port-au-Prince is alive with people. They press against each other, everybody busy. Markets are open with piles of goods. Workers are re-lettering signs. Masons rebuild walls. Painters freshen pink houses. The white dome of the National Palace, built by the occupying Marines in 1920, looks like a slightly off copy of the U.S. White House, which looks like a slightly off copy of an 18th century French Baroque dome, which looks like a slightly off copy of a Greek temple. 3 weeks after his return, the president is still inside, has yet to leave this building. In a narrow alley near the palace, you catch a glimpse of a child's body tiptoeing over a sewage-filled ditch. Is this your job? To take what you feel for your family and transpose it here? We call that journalism, or poetry, or tourism. And when does it become an occupation? You drive past Port-au-Prince, up into the hills, to a wealthy area called Pétionville. Its hotels, the blue eyes of its swimming pools, look west past Cuba to Miami. What happens down in the city amounts to a low-level distraction. They say that after 27 years in prison, when Nelson Mandela was released, he built a room to the exact dimensions of his former cell. Not to relive the suffering, he explained, but to be able to find the bathroom at night. Sometime in the night, as the bougainvillea creeps a finger higher on the stone wall, the barking of the skinny dog changes. The barking of the skinny dog grows rougher and numerous. Many dogs. Lavalas, they bark. Except it's not a bark, it's a chant. Up the dark street they come. Lavalas, lavalas. Hundreds of bare feet climb out of the mud and up the hill. At the doors of the rich, they chant, lavalas. It means a flooding or overturning as strong as any avalanche, to which the rich make no reply. But a rooster answers, Aristide. A rooster crows in the dark, a three-note call, Aristide. The name of the priest turned savior. Lavalas, the dogs all bark. Aristide, the rooster answers, as if it was already dawn, as if the dark was gone for good. A tourist sleeps in a tourist hotel, hears the noise, and to prove it's a dream, wakes and walks to the window. Lights lie strewn like trash on the city. Off in the distance, the dark of the sea. It isn't a dream. It isn't a dream. The tourist leans out to spot the mob, its torches, clubs, and crippled hands. There isn't a mob. It isn't a dream. A rooster crows at a low moon. A dog keeps barking. The National Palace. When I was elected president, it wasn't a strictly political affair. It wasn't the election of a politician of a conventional political party. No, it was an expression of a broad popular movement, of the mobilization of the people as a whole. For the first time, the National Palace became a place not just for professional politicians, but for the people themselves. That's from Jean-Bertrand Aristide, 2006. The security guards at the National Palace take our American driver's license, laminated plastic, and exchange them for visitors' passes, worn paper. Then they show us through a metal detector. It's like a big modern scale. It weighs what we carry. While they check our credentials, we wait in a dirty white room lined with tiles. After we've been okayed, an escort leads us around the side of the building to a set of monumental stairs. Across the green lawn, crowds amassed by the gates. They stare at us like we're somebody. And we're somebody because we're this side of the gates. We climb the stairs to the official entrance. Inside, the wall-to-wall carpet is worn. Old chandeliers dangle from high ceilings. Along the wall, only 4 of 10 marble sconces are left. The rest, we're told, were taken by the previous military government. A set of double doors leads to a small balcony. If you stepped out, you'd be overlooking the green lawn and the gates and the crowds who would probably cheer simply because you stepped out. Beyond them is the marketplace and the traffic. Beyond that, the airport with its base camp and the beaches. Beyond that, the Caribbean. If you were somebody, you'd wave to the crowds below, if this were your history. While we wait, a helicopter lands on the lawn. The grass is blown in little green waves as officials disembark. They look American. Men and women in suits with briefcases. They keep their heads down below the blades. An escort of Marines hurries to greet them, and the officials clap the Marines on the shoulders, then dash towards the palace. We watch them the way the people at the gates watched us. Who are they? Why do they deserve this treatment? How will they change our lives? A red-headed man comes in and begins to chat. He's wearing a heavy silver college ring, Princeton, and a tiny pink earpiece that whispers now and then. Talks about Aristide's first trip outside the palace only a few hours ago. After the president gave a brief speech, he shook off his security guard and walked into the crowd, talking to people, touching them. They went wild. A politician, the red-headed man explains, making it both compliment and criticism. Moments later, we meet the president. He's small, unpresumptuous, a little wall-eyed. He seems delighted to be here, to be back in Haiti, to be in the palace. As he greets each person in the large circle of visitors, he's almost laughing out loud. It's like he's being carried on our shoulders, taken up. He leads us back to his office. Very little furniture. He points to the almost bare desk. This is where I work. He shows us a back room with a pull-out couch, and past that, In the bathroom, 3 cushions stacked against the wall. The first bed, he calls it, smiling at the joke. The might of the American military airlifts him back into power so he can sleep on the floor. Of course, he adds, compared to most Haitians, this is paradise. He speaks with careful modesty, like a priest. Aristide was expelled from his Salesian order 6 years ago. The reason given was glorification of class struggle in direct opposition to the teachings of the church, and using religion to incite hatred and violence. Technically, though, he stayed a priest till this month. And he still acts like he's a servant, doing the will of the people now, rather than, or as well as, God's. If it's an act, it's a convincing one. Joyous, humble, enthusiastic, he talks with us till the red-headed man comes and whispers in his ear. Then the president bows out, apologizing. He has, he says, official business. We're led back through security, where they return our laminated licenses. We walk down the National Drive to the National Gates, where we stop to talk with the American guards. Outside, the crowd is mostly cripples and beggars. Our job is to intervene. We already kick butt. Our orders are to stand between, to supervise the transfer of power from the bad guys to whatever. I was never trained for this. 8 hours of guard duty outside an empty jail. Now and then the wail of big American cars, but mostly kids wanting candy bar. Then what? Well, in a month or 3, democracy. The resurrection of hunger is courage. After the woman is buried, after we've studied the stains on her sheet, out of the dust she'll rise, dazed. The crowd around her is the crowd around the National Palace, pushing against an iron fence where bored GIs in green flak jackets flash their silver guns. They think they protect the people's courage. A skinny little wall-eyed man with a bald spot on the top of his head, like a tonsure, like a monk. Here's a riddle, his smile says. What turns the blades of the helicopter that churns the grass in front of the palace, yet forces the people washed by that wind to bathe in an open sewer? The red-haired man with the heavy ring is sure he knows the answer. He's never been buried. He thinks he's alive. His job is to fax a condensed report and then rise behind it, north. If the riddle's answer is outside the gate, where legs can barely brace a body, where skin has begun to shred, where hunger beats like the biggest drum, then what are the guns guarding? Deep in the white of the National Palace, a little man sleeps on the floor, on a pallet from which he cannot rise. The resurrection of courage is hunger. The road to Jacmel. The road to Jacmel is through the mountains. It cuts back and forth in an upward swirl like it's trying to get you over the top in one long connected peel. It's built on some kind of oceanic limestone, and progress is measured by a series of look-backs. Behind you, against the green of vegetation, you can see the white of the rock. It marks where you've been, how far you've come. The big city of traffic and stacked buildings is soon left behind. Here, there's the emptiness of mountains, an occasional tin roof on a steep slope among the big-leafed sugarcane. Each house stands separately, a small rectangle of sheet metal opened by the smaller rectangle of a door through which you can see blue sky. Children in ripped t-shirts play by the road. One group beats sticks against a banana tree, some kind of game. Behind them, a great valley falls away. Above them, a bird of prey swoops and rises, looking for food. If it's a vulture, it's searching for the dead. If it's a hawk, the living. At the crossroads where the main route meets local trails, there's a market. Instead of the big city's constant cry, this is a weekly event. Women come down with green bananas, breadfruit, plastic bags of charcoal. They arrange their small displays on the curb and wait. It's still commerce, still the marketplace, but it seems more proportionate somehow. The sellers exchange their goods for paper money, gourds, worn and stained with dirt. When the product's gone, or the day ends, the women climb back into the hills. Is this how the world once worked? Hunger close, the sky enormous, home staked to the side of a slope, help and hurt local. On the other side of the mountains, the road comes down in the same swirl. It ends in Jacmel, a town of balconies and broad streets and vistas over a white-blue sea. For all its pastel beauty and wind-blown quiet, Jacmel feels empty, as still as the future. You get here by looking back. The way the river honors the dead is to blush pink, then rush past. The way the river forgets the machete is to polish the bone white. The river deposits the dead at the sea, where they're not dead, but a tincture of red that mixes in a larger body. There they end up saved or safe. Where it begins is the marketplace. Piles of plastic propped in the mud, secondhand shirts ironed and folded, food stamped relief. Behind each careful display, a body nods near sleep, jerks awake, eyes the stream of passing cars, brushes away flies. If each seller declares a life, each buyer shares the same. So begins the long exchange that ends at the river, that ends at the sea. Creole. The switchbacks up the mountains are called karate because they cut back and forth like the hands of a karate master. Governmental attachés are called Samsonites for their luggage. Matthew 15:27. Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. President Aristide, Haitians have always had to eat the crumbs that fall from the table. One day, we will all sit around the table and share the cake. A general who seized power during the last military coup announced at the time that it was no more likely for Aristide to return than for an egg to be put back into a chicken. In the National Palace, one of the president's aides proudly displays a political button showing a finger reinserting an egg. The local buses, known as tap-taps, are covered with color, abstract designs, portraits, lettering. Loaded with people, they bounce along in stop-and-go traffic as if paintings could carry passengers. In the days after Aristide's return, people decorated everything: rocks, trees, the sides of buildings. In Carrefour, a residential section outside Port-au-Prince, murals known as photo, news photographs, change daily. One of the repeating characters is a rooster, the symbol of the Lavalas party, with the bald head, wall eyes, and glasses of Titide, President Aristide. Already in the stalls of the big markets, you can buy paintings of marine choppers hovering over the presidential palace like swarms of green bugs. Stacked next to these are images that go back through Haitian history. Or is it forward? The occupation of the U.S. Marines in 1915, distinguished from the current occupation only by the style of the uniform. The revolutionary hero, Henri Christophe, sitting at his presidential desk, like Aristide's desk, pointing a gun at his heart. In October 1820, having gone from national hero to autocratic ruler, he killed himself with a silver bullet. Monsters lurking in green landscapes. These are boogeymen, the Tonton Macoute, who gave their name to the Duvalier's private security force, now supposedly disbanded. In Haitian bedtime stories, they kidnap and eat children. The headline in a city newspaper, "Poverty in Cap Haitian on Rise," has the factual ring of a field guide, as if truth was a type of tree you could identify and measure. In Latin, the big old trees are Ceiba pendandra. Common English name, the cotton or silk cotton tree, usually found near water. In Creole, it's mapu, a sacred tree that connects earth to sky. It has smooth, muscular bark that seems to curve in on itself and long, snake-like roots. It's known to open at night like a door and reveal the spirits within. Sometimes it gets up and walks. Now, 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 now. In the green room, the poteau matin, a pillar connecting ground to sky, where the snake would curl if the snake should come. The ceiling strung with printed portraits of presidents past and present, qui sont le même homme. This is not our language. This is not our home. What we know here is unknown. Against green walls, dark bodies, all of them dressed in white. From the great-grandmother in a bright scarf, her mouth bunched like a used purse, to the teenage boy, gold-chained, his muscles smoothed with a charcoal thumb. Witnesses stunned into life. What right have we to be here? Strangers on the outside, strangers on the inside. The skin of our wealth is white. 200 bodies stuffed in a room. The windows shuttered, the air wet, the dirt packed down on the floor. The only route out is the poteau matin, which is not a root but a tree without limbs. Then the drums begin to beat the light, slowly turning it whitewashed white till it dances beneath the shadows. This is a place called City Soleil, city of sun, of concrete, sweat, city of pepper, cardboard distilled, city of spit and claret. A chant starts up, almost words. Words are feet with rounded heels. They kick at the dirt, clouds appear, which coat the wet skin gray. As the chanting rises, the shuttered room picks the body of a thin-boned woman who moves with the others but can't stop moving, like a bus climbing over mountains. Where will she sleep? What will she eat? 12 cents a day selling smoke on the street. Squeezed like a pit by the heat and drums, unable to stand, unable to stop, she spins and spins and spins against the bodies that form a living wall, that catch her weight before it can fall, but refuse to take her in, until, spine ridges, muscles spent, she pops from this world to the next. Now it's done. Now. One hand limp in the settling dust. Her whitewashed eyes stare straight up at the faces staring down. Wrap her flesh in a fresh white sheet, stuff her nose and ears with cotton. The ring of the drum strops the shovel till it's nearly as sharp as a blade. Scrape a ditch on the dry dirt floor. Lower her down with care. Now spray her face with a mouthful of water. If this is the city of sun, it is, then the sun's gone dark, the night's opened up, and the earth is a distant, cooling rock, a spark in unlivable space. The chant of the feet has never stopped. Now, a thin-shanked goat gets led to the center. How could we know the inside of its throat would be pink as bougainvillea? Its almond eye, upside down, blinks at the empty ceiling. Slowly the pink drips on her sheets, turning black as a map of the city. Does she die for us? Are we white with her death? Is there room for breath between these beats? The Hungan priest let those who dare jump across her unfilled grave, and then lifts her up, still bagged in her sheet, and sets her on her feet. Is she the one who enters, defiant, then sags in a circle of white-palmed hands, who's lost control but carefully steps past the sack with almond eyes? She opens her own and gapes at us. Where's she now? What have we done? Does she think she's been here all along? Do we think we've been here with her? In a green room, in a city of sun, the world doesn't end at the tiny door, but opens onto an alley ripe with hunger and shit, fruit and skin. What wisdom has gathered across the years settles from cloud back into dirt. It stinks. It stinks of death and decay and the breath that believes in now. You dream you can pass through a modern building, white concrete with rust-red shutters, and a man in a suit will stamp your papers, and you'll rise in a body that maybe you dream. You can always fly back home, but in this dream, you never do.
Thank you, Denize, Stephen, and Daniel. Be well, everyone.